And one of the things I would share is that I don't see gender in fragrance. I know oftentimes brothers approach me and they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for something," and I make a recommendation, and the next question is, "Well, is that for men or is that for women?" Again, with the music analogy, Nas isn't for guys, Beyonce isn't for girls. I got Beyonce music that I enjoy, and I got Nas music that I enjoy, and I got Anita Baker that I enjoy. So I got Nina Simone that I enjoy. So
Right.
fragrances, my philosophy is if I enjoy a fragrance, if it takes me somewhere, I wear it. I've never been told, knock on wood, that I smell girly.
Season 2 of Gentlemen's History Hour is sponsored by HueRepublic.com. HUERepublic.com. Go to HueRepublic.com and get the latest colors to rep your hue. Gentlemen's History Hour, Season 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Gentlemen's History Hour. I am Savvi Hugh, and I have the honor and the pleasure of interviewing a very special guest that we have this evening. We're going to do the history of a gentleman, and this gentleman, to me, is a very fascinating individual. And I follow him on social media, and I've been following him from a long time and picking up a lot of game and a lot of insights. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our special guest for this evening, Mr. Cologne 76. Welcome to Gentlemen's History Hour.
Thank you for having me, Savvy. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on and chop it up with you.
Man, well, thanks for making out the time, man. I know you're a busy man, and I can just tell by your work ethic and everything. Like, you keep it cooking a lot, man. So, we're thankful to have you here on Gentlemen's History Hour, and this is definitely going to be a special interview for me. I had to actually come from behind the camera this time to do this setup, and so it's always those special guests that we have when I have to come from behind the camera because it resonates. What they do resonates with me so much. So I guess we can go ahead and jump into it, man. We're gonna get into a little bit of your personal history. We're gonna talk about your journey and how you became the person that you are right now. So we're gonna start by just kind of asking you, who is Mr. Cologne 76?
That's a good question. Mr. Cologne 76, before I even got onto social media, I was educating people on fragrances, and in my peer group, I've always been called Mr. Cologne just because of my love for perfumes. It was kind of a nickname. And when I discovered the social media space trying to get a name, I realized that Mr. Cologne was already taken. That was just too generic. So started looking. I'm born in the year 1976. So Mr. Cologne 76, that was kind of the name that I chose for my social media presence. But to answer your question, who is Mr. Cologne 76? I'm a man of God. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a family man. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm an uncle. I'm a friend. I'm a registered nurse. And I like to consider myself a good cook.
Oh, okay. A man of many talents, multi-talented, many skills. So yeah, we might have to talk about that cooking thing too for a hot second. I'm not a foodie, by the way. I'm a vegan though, so I kind of run into certain challenges sometimes when it comes to just explaining to people who are really good cooks. Just leave this in or leave that out, and they're like, no, it don't work like that. So let's get a little bit more into your personal history. Can you tell the people where you're from, where your people are from, and how was it growing up where you were raised at?
Sure. I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago. Most people know the Caribbean. Most people are familiar with, Jamaica, maybe Barbados. Trinidad is the very last island in the chain of Caribbean islands. And not only did I grow up in Trinidad, I grew up in the countryside of Trinidad on a farm. So even though, school was really important in my household, work on a farm definitely took up a big portion of my life, and I loved it because working on the farm was kind of a family thing, a family endeavor, and we enjoyed the fruits of our labor as a family. So I really, really enjoy that. So I'm a country boy at heart.
Oh, nice. So at what age did you move over here to the U.S.?
I was 17 when my family migrated. We came to New York, and never went back to Trinidad, but I did live in a few different places.
Okay, I imagine you still have people there. Do you still have family members that are there?
Absolutely. I've got a lot of family there. In fact, I was just home in June and
Hmm.
got tons of aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. That's where my family originated. So definitely got a lot of deep roots there.
Okay, okay, man. So as far as your actual upbringing, you mentioned how you guys grew your food and things like that, and I know like here in the U.S., there's kind of I think a movement that's sparking up with that kind of recently. So have you kind of practiced any of those principles or just kind of those kind of tactical things when it came to like growing your own food and things like that since you've been here in the U.S.? Do you have well, I guess I'm asking you, do you have like a garden? Do you grow your food and things like that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I actually don't have a garden. I have been considering getting an herb garden
Mm-hmm.
because I like fresh herbs, and it's to me it's just better to be able to have it when you need it instead of thinking like, oh, I need cilantro, or oh, I need basil. Let
Mm-hmm.
me run to the store. But I've always taken pride in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that guy that strives to have the best looking yard on the block. I love planting flowers. I love taking care of a yard. So I guess I get my agriculture fix by taking care of my yard.
Mm-hmm. Question. I asked the previous guest I interviewed this one and kind of brought something. So you said you came over to the U.S. at the age of 17. Like, I know that was kind of like on the tail end of maybe your primary education. Did you see a difference in the education system in your home country versus in the U.S.?
When we came to New York, my parents took me to a school district in New York to do a test to see if I would have had to enter into high school. And the folks there were like, "You're ready for college." So I
Mm.
enrolled. I enrolled in college. In fact, I was supposed to start pre-med at a university in Brooklyn, but my father wanted us to live in Queens. He didn't want his kids living in Brooklyn. So even though I enrolled in this school in Brooklyn, come that summer we moved to Queens, and I was too scared to travel from Queens to Brooklyn on the bus, just coming from Trinidad, being a little country boy. So the next closest school to where we lived in Queens only had nursing. Both my parents were registered nurses, so I went to school for nursing.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So that's an interesting dynamic there. So, because I've heard some experiences from people who were expats or immigrants, and they said that schools in the U.S. wouldn't accept their credits on any level, like they had to repeat classes and things like that. And so that's pretty dope, actually, that you were able to say, basically test out of high school and go on to the
Yeah.
next level at the age of 17, man. So that's a pretty unique story from some of the people I've talked to with similar situations. So man, that's I got to big you up on that, man.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And so nursing runs in your family. So you said both of your parents were nurses, and so was it just kind of a natural thing, or was it something that you feel like it was just passionate, or is what okay, this is what it's in my environment. I see this. This kind of is like a something that you can grasp, that you can touch, and you can feel when it came to the nursing.
Honestly, at the time, I was really thinking about what's the closest to the house. The school I
Mm.
attended, I only had to do one bus ride. I was very, very timid. The thought of taking the trains, multiple trains from Queens to Brooklyn was just too much for me to handle at that time. So I entered into nursing with the mindset that, well, my parents are nurses. They were able to provide for us
Yeah.
as nurses. I know I would have help with my education, being able to come to mom and dad with questions. So I went into nursing. And the truth is, as a kid, I was always very proud of my dad. A lot of kids are embarrassed if their dad come, to their primary school, for example. But me, I was always proud. I was just, my dad's a professional man, and he does the thing on the farm.
Mm.
So for me, it was like walking in my dad's footsteps. I was okay with it.
That's what's up, man. I couldn't imagine, like, you being the age that you were in New York City. Now, I don't know how much of a hip hop fan you are or whatever, but me, like, I was born in '78. And so, man, I
Mhm.
like, just kind of seeing from a distance how that culture, how the hip hop culture, kind of came to be from infantry and everything. Like, I was
Mhm.
always fascinated with that. I couldn't even imagine, like, being in the hotbed, being, in what they call the Mecca, which it is the Mecca
Yeah.
of hip hop, man. And then you were in Queens and Brooklyn, man.
Yeah.
Like that must have been some amazing stuff that you saw during that time as that
Ye-
culture came about.
Yeah, I didn't listen to hip hop in Trinidad. I listened to calypso and dancehall reggae, and moved to the United States in 1992. Shortly after that, Biggie Smalls was on the scene. So I'm an East Coast
Yeah,
rap lover.
yeah,
Nas, Jay-Z, Puffy. I was all in that hip hop era, and it was not just the music; it was also the clothes and the dances. So it definitely kind of gave me a little bit of an East Coast swag, if you will.
for sure. Speaking of hip hop, man, you actually were able to interview one of my top 5 MCs, Mr. Tariq Black Thought Trotter from the Roots, man. And so, man, how did that interview come about?
He reached out to me, and I was shocked. I was shocked and shook because I didn't think that people were seeing me. I didn't think that people were noticing what I was doing on social media. And turned out he was a fragrance lover, and we had a wonderful conversation all about fragrances. And to this day, it's definitely a highlight of my journey as a blogger, as a fragrance reviewer.
Yeah, actually, I discovered through you that he was also a fragrance enthusiast, and so to me,
Oh,
it's like, man, it
wow.
just kind of felt like I had another portal because he's not really like a very open person. He tends to be more on the private side. So for me,
Mhm.
I was like, damn, I get to kind of learn a little bit more about the person behind the persona behind like this icon. And so it's like it was just really dope to see someone who I really look up to also have a similar interest that I had. So man, yeah, man, again, big props, major props on
Thank
that coming
you.
about. And yes, people are seeing you, man. So that
Thank you.
it wasn't too much of a surprise to me. The surprise was that I didn't know he was into to the
Right,
fragrances and
right.
things as well. Okay, well, since we're talking about fragrances now, let's kind of segue into kind of the reason that you and I know each other. I just wanted to just also just give you your flowers while you're here, man, because to be a person that that I can tell is kind of really cranking out a lot of content and putting out a lot of knowledge and information on the game of fragrances. Like you actually took the time when I was kind of new in my journey to even like respond to comments, and you get a lot of comments. And you even sent me like recommendations through DMs and stuff like that. Where do you get that sense of like really passing on the knowledge and sowing in the seeds into other folks who are into the same thing as you are? Where did that come from?
I think my dad instilled a teaching spirit in me. It's not just in the fragrance realm, but he's in my professional realm as a nurse. I do a lot of, precepting of the newer nurses. So I've always had that teaching spirit, and I feel like my calling is educating, helping, sharing my knowledge of perfumes. Again, I was doing this before social media was even a thing. So it really just comes natural to me to be able to share.
Dope, dope. Okay, so on that note, can you tell the people how you said you were doing it before social media. Can you remember like when you first realized like, you know what, I kind of like this fragrance thing, and when did you like realize that you had sort of a passion about that?
So I joined the Navy in 1998, and shortly after joining, got to my first command, and I started buying fragrances. Had a little bit of cash, and always maintained a collection. And I was the person where my friends, if we were going out, they would stop by my barracks room to get smell good. And if somebody was curious about knowing, if they asked a question, I didn't push the information too much, but if somebody came and asked a question, I would break down notes and break down, fragrance families and break down, appropriateness of certain fragrance for different occasions. And fast forward, I got out the Navy, discovered the world of niche perfumes, and started, sharing my thoughts on social media.
Nice, nice. Okay, so tell the people what you would describe as the steps that you took from being a startup fragrance reviewer to being able to interview some of the most iconic master perfumers in the world.
Well, first of all, thank you for that compliment. I have to give credit to two people. One, God blessed me with a gift, and that was the gift to just have this passion for fragrances, because the amount of work that it takes to do what I do seldom ever feels exhausting, because I'm working in my passion and I'm following my calling.
Mm-hmm.
Before Mr. Cologne 76 became a thing, one of my friends, family friend from way back in the day, she's actually from Trinidad as well. She reached out to me one day because we were having a conversation about something else, and she said, you've got a lot of followers on social media, but you're not connecting to your followers. So at the time, I probably had 1,500 followers,
Mm-hmm.
and I was, the nerdy part of me wanted to know what that meant to connect to followers. So I started looking online, what does it mean to connect to your followers on social media? And I came across Gary Vaynerchuk, thought leader in, entrepreneur in the digital space, social media marketing. At the time, he had two books, one of which was called Crushing It. I bought the book, and I'm listening to the book on my commute back and forth to work. And as I'm listening to this book, I'm seeing aspects of myself,
Hmm.
because the book is synopsis of people that took a passion and turned it into a business using social media and good work ethic. So I'm seeing glimpses of myself, and that book lit a fire.
Mm.
It lit a fire, and I've never stopped learning. I've never stopped connecting with people. I've never stopped developing, Mr. Cologne 76 community. And I think it was the combination of all those things, good work ethic instilled to me with my dad, the fire that Gary Vaynerchuk's book, lit, and my passion. And that is what's allowed me, with God's grace, to be able to have, the success that I've had in this space.
Live all the way live, I bet you never knew the Houston. We in the house. So where we from? Houston.
This is Flash Gordon Parks. You're listening to Soul One, peaceofmind.com.
So you touched on, it not feeling like work, and having the fire lit and everything like that. But putting out that level of quality of content so consistently, it's almost like being an entrepreneur or like having a business. Would you say that being a content creator is akin to being an entrepreneur or being a business owner, whether you're trying to monetize it or not?
I feel it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that because of the perspective that I've had. So, I'm a reader. I'm an avid reader, and I have read books. For example, Shoe Dog, the Nike owner, his book. Russell Simmons, his book. The book from the CEO of Starbucks. So I glean traits and habits from the guys that have been successful, the guys that have done it, the guys that have walked the walk, and I operate to a certain extent like those guys. Even though I wouldn't say I have a business. I would say I have a business mindset. I would like to have a business one day, but I have a business mindset. And with that being said, you have customers, you have schedules, you have communication, you have PR, you have all those different elements to account for as a blogger, I feel, if you want to be successful.
Right on. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's no easy task because I see sometimes you have your wife. You kind of post her every so often in your content, and so when I'm at home and I'm working on my content, and my wife, she doesn't quite get it. She's like, "You're on social media all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working. It's not like I'm just doing it for fun because I like to do things in the real world as opposed to like being in my device or whatever." And so it's dope. Like I think when you have a partner that kind of understands, what it takes. And so I'm working on my better half to kind of help her. I got to do a better job of helping her understand like what it means. It's like it's really, yes, you're gonna get distracted here and there, of course, just because of the nature of the algorithms and just so many notifications and things always going off. But really, like the primary purpose is to figure out how to get your message out there and how to do it, at a certain level and to get that engagement that you're looking for. So that is, it's not easy. It's not something that I take lightly when I see people who are doing it on a high level. So again, salute to you on the way that you do it or whatever, man. And and salute to your better half as well. You know what I mean? She seems to be a good sport as well. So, but I will say this about my wife. She is starting to actually like sample more of my fragrances and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, now you kind of get it. She's like, "Oh, you just buying too many fragrances," and try to put me on on lockdown. I'm like, "Okay, you on probation," and I was like, I can't help myself. And then I'm trying to turn it around as well. I'm trying to make it into something that could kind of sustain itself, at the same time.
Absolutely. So
that's what's up, man. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned earlier that you're a nurse, a registered nurse as well. As I'm sure you put a lot of hours in with that as well as with your fragrance content. So what would you say are some of the challenges of balancing like a whole career along with putting out the type of content that you do?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Before I answer that question, I want to give a shout out to my wife. It's safe to say that without her grace, without her understanding, without her support, none of this would happen. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I met her as Mr. Cologne 76 was emerging. When I met her, this wasn't a thing. And she has watched this blossom into the animal, the behemoth that it has become, and has never really complained, has never asked me to pull back. She's given me the space. She's been my right hand, in all my endeavors, and she's definitely a huge part of this. So to anyone that's listening to this, it's important that your partner embraces what it is you're doing. Otherwise, you may not have success. So to answer your question about the challenges balancing a career with social media, obviously time is the biggest factor because you only have a finite amount. So I look at it more as a mold as opposed to a challenge. So I've learned to maximize little pockets of time. So when I get on my phone, if I have 15 minutes, I'm going to go all out, with really strategic, movements, engaging with my followers, responding to DMs. I've always prioritized engagement over content. And, people are like, man, every time I get on there, I'm seeing you commenting and stuff. If I get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm on my phone making it happen. At lunch, eat my food real quick, and I'm on it. So I look at it more as a just being more strategic in terms of challenges. You know, as a nurse, I have a finite amount of vacation time, so sometimes I can't make it to certain events, certain trade shows, certain fragrance launches because some of my vacation time is for my family.
Right.
So that is perhaps the biggest challenge is not being able to go to different events that I would like to.
Hey man, yeah, that's what's up, man. And folks, I don't know if y'all heard, he dropped a few gems in there, but the number one gem I just heard was prioritizing engagement over
Absolutely.
content. That's huge. I think that's a bar, man. I think that's a huge takeaway for anybody watching this. So yeah, man. Again, I appreciate your perspective on a lot of things, and that was kind of like another eye opener in the way that you kind of broke that down. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
I'm going to go into a question kind of more so for me this time than the audience. So I got to ask you, you know, at some point, this is going to have to come up. So I got to know. So what is your favorite fragrance house and why?
The truth be told, I have so many fragrances, and several of them are from the same house that I probably have ten favorite perfume houses. And
Mm,
here are some of the things that make a perfume house a favorite of mine: quality,
mm, hmm.
variety, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
quality and variety, and I'm talking quality in the juice, I'm talking in the blend, how the fragrance harmonizes, how it lasts, how it projects, complement factor. All of those things go into quality. So quality to me, it then creates a value because you have something that is going to give you a good experience. And then part of the equation is also my relationship with some of these perfume houses. I have been fortunate enough to be able to talk to some of the owners, some of the perfumers, and develop relationships. So now you have good smell and fragrance that's of value, but now there's a personal relationship. So, if I was to throw some names out there, let's just see, Elemental
Mm,
perfume.
right on.
This is a brother called Luke Solomon that
Nice.
makes some beautiful fragrances, and I've been blessed to be able to have conversations with him, and he values what it is that I do in the fragrance space. There is Serge Luton that makes
Mm,
some very, very avant-garde fragrances that are literal works of art. You have
nice.
Parfums de Marley. When it comes to perfume houses, balancing creativity, balancing appeal, balancing variety, I think Parfum de Marley is one of the top perfume houses that does that. We could talk about this house right here, Atelier des Ors.
Mm,
I like to call them art inside and out the bottle.
mm.
Variety, quality, just beautiful fragrances. I'll name two more.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
man. Yeah.
another
Mhm.
another small house that's been a long time perfume love for me. This is Imaginary Authors.
Okay.
The perfumer, I actually met this perfumer before Mr. Cologne existed, and Josh Meyer is the perfumer of this house, and his fragrances, again, works of art.
Oh,
Small indie perfume brand that's US based. And if I had to name one other house, this is a relatively new house to myself. This is Anchor Cuss. This is an Australian brand. Again, works of art. There are several fragrances from this house that I absolutely love. I love the way they unfold on my skin. I love where they take me when I wear them. And, I tell people that perfume for me, it's like music, right?
mm,
When you're listening to, you mentioned hip hop earlier, and if you put on one of Nas, albums, it was written, and
mm.
you're listening to his rhyme flow and the beats, how it takes you somewhere. Well, fragrances are the same for me. I wear them primarily for myself
Yeah.
and for where they take me.
Man, that's what's up. Yeah, yeah. I try to explain that to my wife, but I couldn't put it in the words that you put it in. So I'm glad I got this interview from you, so I could kind of describe it in a
No
way that she
doubt.
could probably relate to. And so,
Yeah,
so we're almost about to wrap this up, man. But I had to ask you a couple more questions before before we head out. So
certainly.
I got to know. So what's your scent of the day?
So right now I'm actually wearing the fragrance from the Elemental. This is called Cashmere Sex, and I talk about this fragrance a
Mm-hmm.
lot on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
Cashmere Sex, I feel the name is a little bit misleading. This is a beautiful, fruity fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
There's a note. There's a note in here that takes me back to my childhood when my grandmother would make guava jam.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've had guava, but guava is a very pungent fruit, and this fragrance takes me there. So that's what I'm wearing right now. It's called Cashmere Sex. I talk about this a lot. If you're looking for something that's sweet, fruity, slightly musky, I think this is a good option. A good option. And one of the things I would share is that I don't see gender in fragrance. I know oftentimes brothers approach me and they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for something," and I make a recommendation, and the next question is, "Well, is that for men or is that for women?" Again, with the music analogy, Nas isn't for guys, Beyonce isn't for girls. I got Beyonce music that I enjoy, and I got Nas music that I enjoy, and I got Anita Baker that I enjoy. So I got Nina Simone that I enjoy. So
Right.
fragrances, my philosophy is, if I enjoy a fragrance, if it takes me somewhere, I wear it. I've never been told, knock on wood, that I smell girly, ever.
Man, that's what's up. Some more bars for you folks out there that's listening, man. So, yeah, I'm at the point now. My wife says, she asks me all the time, so which one, can I wear? I was like, whichever one you like. When she goes
Absolutely.
through my collection,
Absolutely.
just try it out and see if you like it or not. And so some of the stuff that I bought for her specifically, I actually wear probably just as much, if not more, than she does.
There you go.
So yeah, and I remember, I think I got that game from you when early in my journey. And I was like, you know what? I do like this fragrance, whether they say it's for a woman or, like, for instance, I know you may have mentioned it before, but Portrait of a Lady, right? Just off of the title, the name of it alone. That's like, man, I love it. It's like a banger. I was like, nobody's going to tell me not to wear it, because I'm going to wear it because I just enjoy it that much. And so, names and marketing are one thing. I don't necessarily buy into marketing. I just buy into quality and what I like. So, and then you kind of reinforce that when I, started following you as well. I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm on a certain track or whatever. And honestly, I don't really care about people's opinions anyway. I just like what I like. So that's what's up. So yeah, before we take it out, man, can you give the folks one book recommendation? Some suggested read it for our folks out there, that's following Gentleman's History Hour and following yourself. If there was one book, that you would recommend that kind of had a really big impact on you and that you would recommend to other folks, what would it be?
It would have to be the Bible. It would have to be the Bible.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. Okay, well, folks, man, some more gems, man. So we're about to wrap this interview up, man. I'm actually glad to kind of have Mr. Cologne 76 on the other side. I know he does a lot of interviews and things of other people, so it's kind of good to kind of switch the roles a little bit and kind of put the spotlight on him, so you can kind of get a little bit more of his thought processes and just really just jewels and game, on fragrances and just on life in general. So, man, I appreciate you, brother, for joining us here on Gentleman's History Hour. Is there anything you want the folks to know before we leave? You got any events coming up or any interviews, any live streams, and where can the people follow you at?
Certainly. First, I want to say thank you again for having me. It really means a lot to me to be able to come and grace your stage. So thank you for that. You could find me on social media. I'm primarily on Instagram. I do have a YouTube channel. It's Mr. Cologne 76. So it's MrCologene 76. If you are a perfume lover, if you're curious about the world of perfumes, if you want to connect with other perfume lovers, I welcome you into the community. You could send me a DM. I respond to all my messages myself. And I look forward to connecting with people. And I'm hoping to be able to meet you one of these days, Mr. Savvi.
Hey, likewise, man. So we're going to have to make it happen, man. I understand we're in the same region, so I anticipate that we'll be able to connect, really soon. Sir. So I'm based out of Houston, and you're based out of
Dallas.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. So yeah. Every so often I make that road trip up to Dallas. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that we make that a point to make that in-person connection for sure, brother. And again, once again, I appreciate you and thank you for joining us on this edition of Gentleman's History Hour, the history of a gentleman, Mr. Cologne 76. Thank you again.
Thank you.